Travis Foster didn't plan to get punched in the face before noon, but life had a way of surprising him lately. "Back off," he growled, stepping between the shouting man and the terrified woman near the coffee cart outside the courthouse. She had her arms wrapped around herself, trembling in a sleek navy coat that looked too expensive for this part of town. "This doesn't concern you, man," the guy barked, his breath hot with anger. "She said no," Travis snapped, squaring his stance. "That means it concerns me." The guy took a swing. Travis dodged, barely, then landed a clean hit that sent the man stumbling back. A security officer rushed over, grabbing the aggressor, and the woman finally breathed. Travis turned back to her, wincing as his jaw throbbed. "You okay?" She looked up at him, wide-eyed. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, well, I've got a daughter. I wouldn't want her alone with a creep like that either." She blinked, lips parting slightly. Thank you." He gave a small nod, already turning to head back to his beat-up pickup. He wasn't looking for thanks. He had to pick up Bella from school, pack her lunch, and get to his second shift at the auto shop. "Wait," she called out, jogging after him in heels that probably cost more than his entire monthly rent. He paused. "Yeah." "I'm Talia Carrington," she said, brushing her dark hair behind her ear. "Let me at least buy you a coffee or something." He hesitated. "I'm Travis, and really, I gotta run, but maybe another time." Talia watched him go, her heart still racing not from fear, but from something else. Something that started the moment he stepped between her and danger without hesitation. She didn't tell him she was worth over $2 billion. She didn't tell him she was the CEO of Carrington Global. And she didn't tell him that his rough hands, tired eyes, and the way he said he had a daughter made her feel something she hadn't in years safe. Travis poured cereal into Bella's bowl that night, trying to keep his mind from drifting back to that woman's eyes. She wasn't just beautiful, she was poised, graceful in a way that didn't belong on sidewalks and cracked pavement. "Daddy, why's your face red?" Bella asked, reaching a little hand toward his bruising jaw. "Had a run-in with someone who needed a lesson in manners," he said, kissing her forehead. "Nothing to worry about." "Did you win?" He chuckled. "I got the last word, let's put it that way." His phone buzzed on the counter. Unknown number. He stared at it, frowning. He never got unknown calls, and definitely not this late. He answered anyway. "Hello." "Hey, it's Talia, from earlier." Her voice was soft, nervous. He blinked. "How'd you get my number?" "You left your wallet on the cart. I looked inside for ID. Hope that's okay." His hand went to his back pocket. Empty. She continued. "I had my driver drop it by the police station, but I wanted to talk to you. Thank you again." "Look, you really don't have to." "I know, that's the thing, you didn't either, but you did." There was a pause. "You said you had a daughter." "Yeah, Bella, she's 6. "That's sweet," she said gently. Travis didn't know why he kept talking. Maybe it was the way her voice made the bad day feel a little less heavy. "She's my whole world. Her mom left when she was 2. It's just the 2 of us now." "I'm sorry." He shrugged, even though she couldn't see it. "We make it work." There was another pause. Then, "Can I see you again?" He was quiet for a beat. "Why?" "Because can't stop thinking about you." 2 days later, Talia showed up outside the auto shop in a black car that gleamed like a mirror. Travis nearly dropped his wrench when she stepped out. She wore jeans and a white blouse tucked in, but everything about her screamed elegance even when she smiled nervously and said, "Hey." "Hey," he said, wiping his hands on a rag. "You sure you're in the right place? This side of town doesn't exactly match your vibe." "I like your vibe better," she replied. He raised a brow. "You always this persistent?" Only when I meet someone who punches creeps and has serial dinners with their kid. That made him laugh, the sound rusty but real. You hungry? She nodded, starving. He took her to the diner 2 blocks down. It wasn't fancy vinyl booths, greasy menus, but she didn't complain once. She ordered pancakes. He got a burger. She asked about Bella. He told her about bedtime stories and school projects and how she wanted to be a vet when she grew up. And he asked about her. I run a company, she said simply. What kind? She smiled. Real estate, investments, boring stuff. He didn't push. He liked that she didn't lead with money or power. She just wanted to sit across from him and listen. By the time they walked back to her car, the sky was deep blue and the streetlights buzzed overhead. I had a good time, she said, stepping closer. Me too, he said, surprised to realize how much he meant it. Her hand brushed his. Can I see you again? He hesitated. You sure about that? I'm sure about you. And then she leaned in, pressing the softest kiss to his cheek right beside the fading bruise. The next few weeks passed in a blur of moments Travis hadn't let himself hope for in years. Coffee dates on Bella's school mornings, late night walks after his shift. One night, she brought Bella a tiny stuffed sloth and asked if she liked animals. Bella clutched it to her chest and whispered, You're really pretty. Talia laughed, So are you. Travis watched them, something swelling in his chest he didn't know how to name. He didn't care what kind of company she ran or how much her coat probably cost. All he saw was the way she looked at his daughter, the way she looked at him. Like maybe, just maybe, she saw something worth loving. But he had no idea she was hiding something. And soon, he'd find out how big that something really was. Talia pressed her hand to her chest as the elevator doors closed behind her, heart rattling against her ribs like it was trying to escape. She stood alone in the mirrored walls of the Carrington Global Headquarters top-floor lift, her reflection staring back with wide eyes and flushed cheeks. She hadn't meant to lie, she just hadn't told the whole truth. There was a difference, wasn't there? He's unlike anyone I've ever met, she murmured to herself, watching the floor numbers tick upward. When the doors slid open to her office, Marissa, her assistant, stood waiting with a tablet and a frown. Your meeting with the Dubai delegation was rescheduled to tomorrow, weather delays, she said quickly, then paused, eyes narrowing. You're flushed. Talia breezed past her, setting her bag on the desk. I walked from Central, needed air. Marissa followed her in. You've been different lately. Talia turned. Different how? Lighter, happier, distracted, she added, not unkindly. Is there someone? Talia hesitated. There might be. Marissa blinked. Do they know who you are? Talia sat down, her spine straightening. Not yet. That's going to be a problem. I know. Later that evening, Travis stood in the kitchen with Bella on his hip, flipping through the worn pages of a school flyer. Daddy-daughter dance is next Thursday, he read aloud. You still want to go? Bella nodded, then wrinkled her nose. But I don't have a dress. We'll figure something out, he promised, kissing her temple. He'd have to skip a shift, maybe 2, to make it happen. After tucking her into bed, he stepped out onto the porch where the night air was cool and still. The stars above barely pierced the city's light pollution, but he stared upward anyway. He wasn't used to someone like Talia. She moved like she belonged in a world of crystal chandeliers and art gallery openings. And yet, she'd sat across from him in a greasy booth without flinching. She'd crouched down to Bella's level, listened to her talk about sea turtles like it was the most interesting thing in the world. And she kept coming back. The next day, Travis found her waiting outside the school. Bella squealed and ran to her, arms outstretched. You came. I said I would, Talia replied, lifting her easily. I wanted to see you both. Travis raised a brow. You sure this isn't too far out of your way? I cleared my schedule. He gave a low whistle. Must be nice. She smiled, but it faded as her gaze swept over the frayed backpack Bella wore and the cracked sidewalk they stood on. Can I take you both somewhere today? Travis hesitated. Where? There's a place uptown that does hands-on science exhibits for kids. Bella might like it. Bella already had her hands clasped together, eyes wide. Can we go, Daddy? Travis looked between them. All right, but a drive. The place turned out to be a sprawling, multi-story museum with glowing orbs, interactive tunnels, and a massive aquarium in the center. Bella ran ahead, squealing at every turn, pressing her face to the glass as jellyfish drifted like ghosts through blue light. Talia knelt beside her. Did you know jellyfish have no brains? Bella whipped around. Then how do they know what to do? They don't, they just float and survive. That's weird, Bella declared. That's nature, Travis said, stepping up beside them. Talia looked over at him. You've done a beautiful job with her. He folded his arms. Try. Afterward, she took them to a small cafe tucked down a side street, one of those places with mismatched chairs and warm bread baskets. Bella curled up beside Travis, half asleep from the excitement. Talia leaned in. What would you do if money wasn't an issue? He blinked. That's a pretty big if. Pretend. He considered. I'd open my own garage, not just repairs, restorations. Old cars, classics. I'd teach kids how to fix them too, keep them out of trouble. That's incredible. He shrugged. Pipe dream. Maybe not. He studied her. What about you? I'd leave the city for a while, she said softly. Go somewhere quiet, maybe Tuscany, live off the grid, learn how to cook with whatever I could grow. Tuscany, huh? That's oddly specific. She smiled. I've thought about it a lot. Travis leaned back. So what's stopping you? Her smile faltered. Everything. Back at his apartment, Bella was already curled up in bed. Travis walked Talia to the door. I should go, she said, but didn't move. He rested his hand on the doorframe. Why do I get the feeling you're running from something? She looked up at him. Because I am. You want to tell me what? I want to, she whispered, but I'm afraid it'll change everything. He studied her face. Then tell me when you're ready. She nodded and turned to leave, but paused. Travis. Yeah. You make me feel like I've been sleepwalking and just woke up. The door clicked shut behind her, leaving him standing there, more awake than he'd been in years. That night, Talia sat in her penthouse, her phone beside her untouched. She stared out at the city skyline, where the light stretched endlessly into the dark. She picked up a framed photo from her bookshelf, a glossy magazine shot of her and her late father at a gala. He'd built their empire from the ground up, and after he passed, she'd taken the reins. For years, she'd lived inside boardrooms, on private planes, behind glass towers. But now her heart beat faster when a man in oil-stained jeans said her name like it meant something real. And she knew sooner or later he'd find out just how much she hadn't told him. And when that happened, she didn't know if he'd ever look at her the same way again. The black SUV rolled to a stop in front of a quiet brownstone in Brooklyn, where a string of dim porch lights blinked in the early spring dusk. Talia sat in the back seat, hands clenched in her lap, watching the window of the second-floor flicker with the soft glow of a cartoon playing inside. She could just make out Bella dancing in front of the screen, a blur of movement wrapped in a blanket. She didn't knock right away. The driver had offered to wait, but she dismissed him. A car like that didn't belong on the street, neither did she. Not really. And yet, this was where her heart kept pulling her. When she finally climbed the steps and pressed the buzzer, the door opened almost immediately. Travis stood there in a gray thermal shirt and worn jeans, the sleeves pushed up to his elbows. His hair was damp, like he'd just stepped out of the shower, and his expression shifted when he saw her surprised, then wary. "You didn't call," he said. "I didn't want to give you the chance to say no." He stepped aside. "Come in." The living room was warm, cluttered, but cozy. A half-built school project sat on the coffee table, something involving pipe cleaners and glitter glue. The scent of cinnamon hung in the air, a candle burning low on the windowsill. Talia looked around, hesitating by the doorway. "I didn't come just to see you." Travis raised an eyebrow. "Bella's already asleep." "I brought something for her," she said, pulling a paperback from her coat pocket. The cover featured a cartoon veterinarian surrounded by animals. She mentioned she liked stories with animals who talk. He took the book from her, his fingers brushing hers. "Thanks, she'll love it." Talia opened her mouth, but the words tangled. She'd rehearsed the speech in her head a dozen times on the drive over, but now, standing here, everything felt fragile. Travis noticed. "You all right?" "I need to tell you something." He nodded and gestured to the couch. She sat, smoothing her skirt over her knees. "Haven't been honest with you, not because I wanted to lie. I liked who I was when I was with you, and I didn't want that to change." He folded his arms, leaning against the wall. "Sounds serious." "It is," she took a breath. "My last name is Carrington. I run Carrington Global." Silence spread between them like frost. Travis didn't move, didn't blink. "Carrington as in the real estate company." "Yes." He exhaled slowly. "That's a lot." "I know. You've been sitting in diners with me and walking through parking lots like you don't have a driver or a private jet waiting outside. Because none of that matters when I'm with you." He let out a short laugh, sharp, not amused. "It matters when you don't say anything about it." "I was afraid if I did, you'd see me differently." "I see you differently now because you waited this long to say it." She stood. "I didn't want to scare you off." "You think being honest would have scared me more than finding out like this." Talia stepped closer. "I've never met anyone who didn't want something from me. You didn't even ask what I did for a living." "Because I didn't care, but now I'm wondering if I should have." His voice wasn't angry, just tired, like a balloon slowly leaking air. She didn't expect forgiveness, not yet, but she couldn't leave it like this. "If you want me to walk away, I will." Travis looked at her, and for the first time since she met him, there was distance in his eyes. "I need some time." She nodded. "Okay." When she stepped out into the night, the breeze stung her cheeks. For the first time in years, the city lights felt cold. Inside, Travis stood still for a long moment, the book in his hand. Then he turned off the lamp and walked down the hall to check on Bella, needing something solid, something real. The next few days passed like fog. Talia buried herself in meetings, interviews, and quarterly reports, her schedule packed from dawn until midnight. But none of it mattered. She couldn't stop thinking about the way Travis had looked at her like a stranger. At the office, Marissa handed her a thick envelope. This came through legal, regarding the Midtown redevelopment project. It includes the list of small business owners who will be affected. Talia flipped it open absently until one name caught her eye. Foster & Co. Auto Restoration. She froze. "Where is this?" she asked. "East Williamsburg. We're acquiring the entire block." Talia's pulse spiked. "Put it on hold." Marissa blinked. "Excuse me." "I don't want any action taken on that lot, not until I say otherwise." Marissa hesitated. "Talia, there's an entire team already in negotiations. I said put it on hold. The moment Marissa left, Talia sank into her chair. Her fingers trembled as she picked up her phone, but she didn't call him. Not yet. That night, Travis sat on the edge of Bella's bed, brushing her curls from her forehead as she slept. The apartment was quiet, save for the hum of the old fridge in the kitchen. He stared at the book she'd brought. He hadn't read it to Bella yet. He didn't know why. Maybe because part of him didn't want to admit that the woman who gave it to her might not be coming back. His phone rang. He picked it up, expecting his boss or maybe someone from the school. But it wasn't either. Travis Foster, a clipped voice asked. Yeah. This is Daniel Ortiz. I represent Carrington Global. Understand you're the owner of Foster & Co. Travis's stomach dropped. Yeah. We're reaching out to local tenants ahead of a pending acquisition. You'll be receiving a formal notice of termination on your lease within the next 2 weeks. He didn't hear the rest. When the call ended, he sat in the dark, breathing hard. She knew. She had to have known. And she said nothing. Whatever excuses she had vanished now, replaced by a sick weight in his chest. She hadn't just lied. She'd gotten close to him while her company was preparing to take away the one thing he'd built with his own hands. He stood, walked to the window, and stared out at the street. The next time he saw her, there wouldn't be room for softness. Not after this. Travis didn't sleep. He sat in the garage alone the next morning before sunrise, the rolling door half open, letting in the dull gray of dawn. Tools were still scattered from the last job he'd done, a '68 Mustang that needed a new transmission. He couldn't even look at it now, not with the weight of what was coming pressing down on his chest like a vice. He didn't tell Bella, not yet. She was still home, curled up under her unicorn comforter, and he didn't have the heart to explain that the place she called Daddy's shop was going to be ripped away like it was nothing. He didn't want to believe Talia had known, but Ortiz had said they were already in talks, which meant this wasn't a new decision. It was deliberate, strategic, cold. He was still staring at the floor when he heard the low purr of tires on pavement. He didn't need to turn to know it was her. Talia stepped out of the car, no driver in sight this time. She wore a cream trench coat, but there was no makeup, no polish. Her hair was pulled back, face pale from lack of sleep, and eyes locked on him like she'd rehearsed this moment 100 times. I told them to stop the acquisition, she said, not waiting for him to speak. He stood but didn't move closer, little late for that. I didn't know, she said, voice raw. I wasn't aware your shop was part of the Midtown block. I found out when the file landed on my desk. You own the company, he interrupted. How do you not know whose lives you're steamrolling? I oversee the top tier. That project was buried under a dozen others. I swear on everything, Travis, I didn't know it was you. I would never have. You shouldn't have had to know it was me to care. That stopped her cold. He turned away, picking up a wrench, setting it down again. His hands weren't steady. You came into my world, into my home. You looked my daughter in the eye and told her stories. And the whole time, your company was getting ready to wipe out the only thing I've built with my own hands. I came to you before ever saw that file, she said. I didn't choose you because of the shop. I chose you because you were the first real thing I'd felt in years. He exhaled hard, jaw tight. I don't know if I can believe that. I'm not asking you to, she said softly. I'm asking you to see what I've done since. Killed the acquisition. I'm putting the entire redevelopment on hold until we incorporate protections for every small business involved. He looked at her then. Why would you do that, to make yourself feel better? No, she said, stepping closer. Because I saw what this place means, not just to you, to this neighborhood. to your daughter, and because I want to be the kind of woman who deserves to stand next to you." Silence stretched between them, thick and uncertain. "I'm not the man you think I am," he finally said. "I get tired. I lose my temper. I don't have time to dream big. Every day is just about surviving." "I don't need perfect," she said. "I need honest." He studied her, breathing shallow. "I don't know how to trust you again." "I'll wait until you do." She handed him a small envelope. "I didn't come here just for me. That's an address. I signed over a commercial lot to a new community foundation. You're listed on the paperwork as one of the founding members. It's yours if you want it. No strings." He didn't open the envelope, just held it, staring at her. "You can hate me if you need to," she added, "but don't walk away from what you've earned." She turned and walked back to the car. He didn't stop her. Not yet. That night, Travis sat beside Bella as she colored a picture of a dog wearing sunglasses. She tapped the crayon against the paper. "Why do you look sad, Daddy?" He hesitated. "Do you like Talia?" Bella nodded. "She smells like flowers and she laughs at my jokes." Travis smiled faintly. "She told me she's sorry." "Are you gonna forgive her?" "I don't know yet." Bella frowned. "You always say sorry is for when you mean it." He looked at her. "Yeah, I did say that." She handed him a crayon. "Then maybe you just need time." The next day, Travis stood in front of a building he hadn't seen before. A modest brick storefront, freshly painted, with a temporary sign in the window that read, "Future Home of Foster and Co. Auto Restoration." He stepped inside. The floor was unfinished, the walls bare, but the ceiling was high and the space smelled like possibility. A man in a suit met him near the back. "We were told to expect you. Everything's ready when you are." Travis nodded slowly. "She really did all this?" "She said it was non-negotiable." He stepped deeper into the space, heart heavy and full all at once. 2 days later, he found himself outside a rooftop garden he never knew existed, above a building that overlooked the East River. There were fairy lights strung between trellises and a table set for two under the stars. Talia stood at the edge, arms wrapped around herself, staring out over the water. He didn't say anything at first, just walked up and stood beside her. Her voice was quiet. "I thought maybe you wouldn't come." "I almost didn't," he admitted, "but then I realized something." "What?" "You didn't just fix what your company broke. You gave up control to do it. You stepped back for the first time in your life, didn't you?" She nodded. "I know what that costs," he said, "and I don't take it lightly." She turned to him, eyes shining. "So what now?" "I don't trust easy," he said, "but I believe you meant it. And I believe there's something here worth holding onto." She reached for his hand cautiously, like she was afraid he'd pull away. He didn't. "You really gave me a shop?" he asked, voice low. "I gave you a future," she whispered. "Because you gave me something I hadn't felt in years. You made me remember who I was before the money, before the company. You saw me when I didn't even know I was lost." He looked down at their joined hands. "And you saw me when I didn't even know I deserved more." She laughed softly. "We're a pair, huh?" He leaned in, kissed her gently, and this time neither of them pulled away. 3 months later, they stood together at the grand opening of the new Foster & Co. Bella holding a pair of oversized scissors in her tiny hands as a crowd clapped and cameras flashed. Travis wore a suit that actually fit, and Talia stood beside him in a sundress, her fingers laced with his. He didn't care who knew now. He was the man who fixed engines. She was the woman who rebuilt her own heart. And somehow, against every odd, they'd found each other in the middle of a city that never stopped moving, never stopped taking. But this time, they had something worth standing still for. Together. The last guest had just stepped off the custom-built platform when the wind caught the corner of the silk ribbon Bella had cut earlier, sending it fluttering like a flag above the grand opening banner. Travis caught it before it blew into the street, folding it carefully and tucking it into the inside pocket of his jacket. He didn't know why, maybe because it felt like the first page of something he never thought he'd get to write. Talia stood near the refurbished garage entrance, talking with a representative from the community board. Her posture was relaxed but alert, nodding thoughtfully as she listened, her expression composed. When she caught his eye across the space, she excused herself and walked over, weaving through the last lingering attendees. The sun had fallen low in the sky, casting long orange shadows across the parking lot. Her heels clicked softly against the concrete as she reached him. "Everything went smoother than I expected," she said lightly, adjusting the strap of her purse. "I think people were surprised you showed up at all," Travis replied, his tone neutral but his eyes warm. "You didn't have to." "I wanted to," she said, "and besides, I couldn't let Bella do all the ribbon cutting alone." "She was proud," he said. "She should be, so should you." He didn't answer right away, watching as Bella climbed onto a nearby crate, pretending to give a speech to a trio of pigeons on the sidewalk. "You said once you wanted to disappear to Tuscany," he said. "You still think about that?" "Sometimes, but lately I've been thinking less about running away and more about what I want to build." He turned to her, "And what's that?" She drew in a breath. "A life that isn't divided between who I am in a boardroom and who I'm when I'm with you. I want something grounded, something real." "You saying you're done with skyscrapers and billion-dollar mergers?" "I'm saying I'm done letting them define me." Travis leaned against the post beside him, crossing his arms. "So what does that mean practically?" "I've stepped back from daily operations," she said. "I've appointed a new president to handle the business side. I'll still oversee major decisions, but I'm not flying to 5 cities a week anymore. I've already turned down 2 international panels and a conference in Singapore." He blinked. "That's a big shift." "I needed to reclaim my time," she said, "and I want to spend it on things that matter. You, Bella, us." Travis's throat tightened. He glanced back at his daughter, who had now roped in a stray dog for her imaginary audience. "I don't know what kind of future you saw in me when we met," he said, his voice quiet. "But this isn't just about gratitude anymore. I've never needed someone to fix my life, but I want you in it. Not because of everything you've done, because of who you are when you're here." Talia reached for his hand. "You don't have to need me. Wanting me is more than enough." He pulled her closer, the hum of the city receding behind them. "I want you, Talia, and I want this, all of it." She rested her forehead against his. "Then let's make it ours." Weeks later, the garage echoed with the sound of laughter and music as friends and neighbors gathered for a weekend barbecue on the lot. Bella chased Bubbles with 2 other kids from the neighborhood, her shoes long abandoned, feet blackened with pavement dust. Travis stood by the grill flipping burgers, while Talia helped set up drinks near an old tire rack repurposed as a cooler stand. "You ever think about leaving the city?" he asked, handing her a plate. "Only if you're coming with me," she said, scooping a spoonful of pasta salad. "I was thinking more like a cabin somewhere. Woods, maybe even a lake. Bella'd love it." She'd demand a canoe in the first 5 minutes. They shared a grin, that quiet, knowing kind, the kind that didn't need words to carry weight. Later that night, when the guests had gone and Bella had finally fallen asleep in her room upstairs, Travis stood in the doorway of the loft above the garage, their home now, not just his. Talia sat on the edge of the bed, brushing out her hair. The moonlight poured in through the skylight above, casting silver onto her skin. She looked up at him, and without a word, he walked over and sat beside her. "You scared?" she asked softly. He shook his head. "I've never been more sure of anything." She leaned into him, the silence between them full of peace. Then let's build it, from here, together. They lay back on the bed, hands intertwined, the city humming quietly beneath them. No more secrets, no more running, just two people anchored in something real. A year later, the garage thrived not just as a business, but as a community hub. Travis ran restoration classes for teens on weekends, and Bella had taken to handing out custom shop stickers to anyone who visited. Talia launched a foundation dedicated to preserving small businesses in vulnerable neighborhoods, and her name became less associated with skyscrapers and more with impact where it mattered. They didn't need a Tuscany villa or a private island. Love had found them right where they stood on cracked sidewalks and behind garage doors, in bedtime stories and secondhand books, in the moments between chaos and calm. And in every one of those moments, they chose each other again and again, without hesitation.